friends, so we're going to talk about bridges in this video, and if you have been watching this channel for a while, you may have heard me talk about them before, how there are many times in life when you should really not burn them, because, well, you just don't know where life is going to take you. Or you might have heard me say that you cannot burn bridges with people and then get mad when they will not send you a boat. Those are still valid tenets, and this video doesn't change that at all. But there are some times, friends, when actually burning bridges is not at all a bad thing. In fact, doing so is a very good thing, because doing it will create a significant barricade between you and something that you should definitely not go back to. Like what? Bad habits, toxic people, one-sided relationships, places and things that make you feel bad about yourself, and so on. Those things, yeah, light 2 matches to burn that shiz down if one is not enough. If you have had the strength and courage to pull yourself out of any of those situations or others that are similar in nature, be proud of yourself, because that is huge. And those are roads that you never need to go down again, because you deserve better. And you didn't put in all that hard work for nothing. There are some times in life where we find ourselves in situations or interpersonal relationships that are just not good for us. Most of the time, we are even aware of that in some way, even if we aren't ready to admit it. And then others we make ourselves willfully blind to, because we are chasing a temporary happiness that those things or people might give us. We paint over the colors that we see in those things that we don't like, and we do it over and over. We hang our hats on the hope that maybe something will change and things will get better. Listen, there is nothing wrong with having hope, but, you know, I think Friedrich Nietzsche said it best when he said, in reality, hope is the worst of all evils because it prolongs man's torments. Nietzsche is a bit dark and pessimistic for me sometimes, but I don't think he's actually wrong here. Hope does prolong the inevitable sometimes, and having too much of it in a situation where we know in our heart of hearts is actually things are hopeless, it is really just denying acceptance. And in turn, that stunts and delays our healing from the disappointment of failure. And people do sometimes hope against hope in situations where it's not been present at all. Without getting too airy-fairy here, what I am trying to say here is this: we all want to see the good in things and in people. And we will sometimes cling to that so tightly that we end up breaking our own hearts when it doesn't happen. There are some things and people where there just isn't any good, sad to say. That's why I often say that a much more realistic thing to do is not so much try to see the good in people, but to see the truth instead. You'd be surprised how many times and in how many ways people show those things to us, but we fail to see them. People tell on themselves all the time, way more than we realize. It's just that hope sometimes clouds our vision so much that we put our faith in these things that defy even logic. It's like the woman who marries the dude that was in prison for robbing his last 3 wives blind. The people around her are scratching their heads and wondering, what the hell is she thinking? But if you ask her, she'll tell you that he's changed and he's reformed, etc. But what she is telling herself is that, plus, she's different or special or the right one, and as such, none of that will happen to her, right? This is an assertion that hope has whispered in her ear, and that's the only place it can come from, because logic is over here going, are you sure about that? Just like her friends are. Then a little while later, when the very thing this guy did to every other wife happens to her too, literally nobody is surprised. This isn't being overly pessimistic or me saying that some people don't change or get their life right. Of course they do. But that tends to be, sad to say, the exception and not the rule. A lot of people keep following their patterns, no matter what, even if all they do is lead them right off a cliff. That's an example of when hope is, well, kind of foolish and can lead us down those wrong paths. So all of this discussion kind of begs the question, okay, so how do I know when I should burn a bridge and when I should mend or rebuild it, right? This is one of those questions that can keep you up at night for days, I know. I've been in that place where I've needed to make this very same choice. And here is what helped me. Your mileage may vary, of course. The first thing I realized was that if the answer was not an immediate, yes, fix this one, then it was likely going to be a bridge I needed to burn. Good things in your life are so much more on the nose and sometimes obvious than bad things are. That's just how it is. The other thing I asked myself was, what would I say to a friend who came to me with that same problem and asked the same questions? Let's face it, friends, we are so much better at giving other people good advice than we are at following it for ourselves. We would never tell a friend or a loved one who was in an unhealthy or dangerous situation or relationship that they have been trying to fix, and they have tried and tried to fix. We would not tell them to just stick around and keep sucking it up, right? Of course not. I mean, you'd be a terrible friend if you did that and just told somebody to keep suffering. You would most likely tell them that walking away is better for them than staying, and you would encourage them to do so. So why not make the same kind of pragmatic choice for yourself? After all, should you not speak to yourself as you would someone that you love because you are someone that you love? Listen, there are plenty of times when you find yourself in a situation where you know things are just not right, but instead of making moves, you just make excuses for the situation, for the other person, for yourself, and why you aren't doing anything about it. And look, I realize that sometimes we're tied to some situation in ways where we cannot just pack up, leave town, and never think about the problem again, lighting a match on the path so that those problems can't follow us. But there are also plenty of times where we actually can do a lot more than we think, but we choose not to. Sometimes it's because we don't want to step on toes or make anyone uncomfortable, including ourselves. I don't think there's a single person on earth who is trying to purposely make their own life harder. But look, people, you do not need to put up with toxic and negative situations because sticking up for yourself without sticking up for yourself just because. There are often many other appropriate ways to handle those things, including walking away when efforts are futile and the whole thing is causing you more harm than it is good. Even though it's going to be hard, you often have to find your strength in those situations. And even if you have to borrow the gasoline from a friend and they have to drive you to the bridge, it's going to be time to light that sucker, because not doing it is only going to keep hurting you until you do. This is a lesson that is very hard to learn. Ask me how I know. But I'll tell you what, after the smoke cleared from the burn, so to speak, I realized something about that bridge. It was only going one way, and that was backwards, towards a version of me that I had grown out of a long time ago. Keeping that bridge open was only giving easy access to people that wanted to drag me back because it benefited them, to the places where there were no boundaries, were the places I did not stand up for myself. So not having that bridge there gave me a different view of the future, too. It was less cluttered, more scenic, and free of obstructions. It was sort of like spending years sitting in front of a window whose panes had been painted black, only to decide to open it one day and find out that you were missing on the most beautiful sights you've ever seen behind that darkness. So, as the message says, some bridges just need to be burned, friends, and it's perfectly fine to do that when that is what is best for you. In fact, you're encouraged to do that because the truth is, some chapters need to be closed completely in order for us to start new ones. Some people need to be kept out of your immediate circle because they have proven time and time again that they do not deserve to be there. Some situations will never change no matter how badly you want them to. Some things are just inherently toxic or negative and will not miraculously transform into something healthy and positive, no matter what. Some people have significant trauma or damage that they will not work on or try not to inflict on others just because they have been hurt, and there is nothing that you can do to change that. Some people are perfectly content being the victim or being a user or a fake friend or selfish, and that is not changing anytime soon unless they are the ones who do it. Look, nobody wants to leave things or people on bad terms, but sometimes that is really the only choice that you have that is best for you. And you need to be your own priority, friends, because if you don't look out for you first and foremost, then who will? Don't be afraid to burn it all down when you know that's what you need to do, even if it means you have to rebuild on scorched earth. In your heart of hearts, you'll know when the time is right and the situation is done. Trust your gut on it. It usually knows before the rest of you does that it's time, and it's time to focus on your safe and happy passage and not anyone else's. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.